My dear Dolly, Polly, shut your eyes. Lie still, lie silent, utter no cries as the witcher.
I love this show. It has become quite popular over its time. But did you know, like many cartoons, they mainly come from very, very dark backgrounds? Disney is mainly known for this right here. In My Little Ponies, well, it's no exception to the rules. If you only knew the background that came to it. Join me as we explore. You all probably know by now the TV show My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, right? The show premiered in October of 2010 and has since then become quite the phenomenon. From toys, merchandise, even to the creation of a fandom called Bronies. And whether you like the show or not, you have to admit, its success is very impressive. But it raises the question, Lauren Faust is the developer of the My Little Pony property, which resulted in the creation of the new TV series. But why would she recreate a 1980s commercial toy when she was also, at the time, creating her own toy line, the Galaxy Girls? Maybe she was just nostalgic about her favorite toy when she was little. Or maybe it was something more. A little over 14 years ago, there was a story that broke about 6 girls that went to the same school and died on the same day. November 7, 2004. It didn't dawn on people until the main characters were introduced. That's when some people came to the realization that the characters of the show bore a striking resemblance to the girls that died. Take Samantha Gales, for instance. Samantha was a very shy girl, and many people couldn't understand why. Well, little did they know that at home, Samantha was constantly abused by her mother and stepfather. Her mother's abuse came from having Samantha at the very young age of 15, not being able to do all those wild and fun things she loved as an irresponsible teen. Samantha's mom blamed her and constantly took it out on her physically. She would also neglect Samantha, especially when a man was involved in her life. This made Samantha very self-conscious. And when her stepfather entered the picture, the neglect and abuse got even worse. Because her stepfather never liked watching Samantha when her mother was away, so he locked her up in the basement when she left. Sometimes the whole entire time her mother was gone. And the one time Samantha told her mother about what was happening, her mother just denied the accusations, which only made the abuse worse. The abuse would not reach its maximum until Samantha's half-sister was born. From there, her life would be nothing but a nightmare. She was starved, forced to sleep outside at times, even beaten for no apparent reason. In her school environment, no better. Samantha was constantly picked on because of her shabby appearance. Her only safe haven were the animals she'd rescue, which her family would make her get rid of. It wasn't until on that fateful day of November 7, 2004, where Samantha just couldn't take it anymore. So she committed suicide by overdosing. Samantha Gales was clearly the inspiration for Fluttershy. Next is Janice Walters. Unlike Samantha, Janice was a very popular girl. She was rich, smart, and seemed to live the fabulous life. However, at home, her parents argued constantly and were only together to make public appearances. Janice was held up to a very high standard, and this made her a perfectionist. Everything she did had to be perfect or not be done at all. Her dreams were to become a fashion designer and live in Paris, but her parents wanted her to live locally and marry into wealth. And for the most part, her parents ignored her. The only time they paid attention to Janice was when it came to public appearances where they pretended they were wealthy and happy. But the sad reality was they were losing money hand over fist because of her father's debts and her mother's bad spending habits. On the day of November 7, 2004, Janice's parents were arguing over money while her father was driving. He accidentally ran a red light, and their car was side impacted by another on Janice's side. The impact of the crash snapped her neck, and she died instantly. Janice is clearly the inspiration for Rarity. Next, we have Alexandra Matthews. Alex, as she liked to be called, excelled in sports, especially track. This was mainly due to her father. Her father always wanted a boy who could follow in his sporting footsteps. But after Alex was born, her mother was declared incapable of having any more kids. So loving her father and wanting to do him proud, Alexandra gladly played sports for him. She was a top-notch athlete, which made her popular. And by the time she entered high school, she was being sought out by college scouts all over the country, which made her father happy and made her try even harder. However, all this started to change when Alexandra's mother, who was told that she was incapable of having any more kids, finally had a son. After that, her father's attention slowly started to fade from her and onto her younger brother. This made Alexandra more determined to succeed. So from that point on, she only concentrated on sports. She ended up neglecting friends, schoolwork, even her personal health, because one day, a fellow runner introduced her to steroids, told her they would give her an edge. Little did Alex know that inside of her chest, slowly developing, was a heart condition, and the steroids only made it worse. During a track event on November 7, with her family cheering in the stands, halfway through, Alex suffered a massive heart attack. She was rushed to the hospital where she died upon arrival. Alex is clearly the inspiration for Rainbow Dash. The next girl on the list, Jamie Sanders. Jamie was a farm girl, so it's already obvious she's the inspiration for Applejack. The difference is, her farm was very run down and the family always struggled for money. So Jamie would work odd jobs to help pitch in and help. And since she was the second oldest of many younger brothers and sisters, Jamie would also help take care of her younger siblings. This meant she didn't have any time to hang out with friends or do any extracurricular activities at school. Jamie's aunt always kept offering to send money to help out the family during their financial struggle, but they were so proud, so therefore they always refused. That was until her father died of a heart attack. Her mother followed shortly after. Depressed by being a widow and taking care of so many kids, Jamie's mother committed suicide. They were then taken in by their almost senile grandmother. This left most of the responsibility on Jamie and her bigger brother. But on November 7, 2004, Jamie was grinding up gathered sticks from the farm and putting them in the wood chipper when it jammed. Having done it so many times, Jamie used her foot to try to knock the jam sticks loose. Unfortunately, when doing so, the machine unjammed as she was giving one final kick, and it grinded her leg up. Living so far out in the country, by the time the family made it to the hospital, Jamie died from massive blood loss. Then there's Katherine Jackson. Katherine's story is very sad because at the age of 5, she witnessed her father killing her mother and then killing himself right in front of her. After that, she was moved from foster home to foster home. Eventually, she was settled in a nice house with a nice family, but old memories of that horrible day would always come back to haunt her, breaking her sanity into a million pieces. Hearing her mother scream, her blood splatter onto her, and her father screaming and telling her that she was next would cause Katherine multiple nightmares, to the fact where her adopted family had to seek psychiatric help for her. But by the time she reached high school, she had completely snapped. She would hallucinate and act out in class sometimes, but teachers and fellow classmates chalked it up to her being hyperactive. She would often draw and write about fascinating things, as well as dress in bright, over-the-top clothing. But the voices in her head continued to get worse and more demanding. So sadly, on that day of November 7, 2004, Katherine jumped off a building and fell to her death because one of the voices in her head told her that she could fly. Katherine Jackson is clearly the inspiration for Pinkie Pie. What makes this even more chilling is that originally Lauren Faust designed Pinkie Pie to be a Pegasus. And finally, we have Cynthia Little. Cynthia was held up to a high standard because of her older brother, who was constantly getting academic achievements. So her parents held her up to the same standards as well. She ended up neglecting a lot of things, friends and fun. It was constant study, study, study. And for a while, it worked. Her parents were so proud of her accomplishment that they bragged to their friends constantly about not having one, but 2 genius children. That is, until a local private school for the gifted started showing interest in Cynthia. Cynthia knew this was an opportunity she needed to finally prove to her parents that she was the perfect child. But the pressure was high. Not only were there a few spots in order to get in, it required a test and an essay worthy enough for enrollment. This made Cynthia desperate. She would study so hard to the point where she hardly ate or slept. And when the day arrived, she panicked. She opted to find an essay online where she copied, and during the test, she resorted to cheating, but was caught and rejected by the school. This horrified her parents. Cynthia sank into a deep depression after that. And on November 7, 2004, she hung herself with a note attached to her that read, "Sorry I failed to be the perfect child." Cynthia Little is clearly the inspiration for Twilight Sparkle. Now, you really gotta be wondering, why would Lauren Faust create such a sweet TV show inspired by such tragic events? Well, perhaps she felt the need to give the girls closure and give their story the happy ending the best way she possibly could. Because think about it. Fluttershy is able to take care of animals she adores. Rarity is a successful designer with loving parents. Rainbow Dash is a top-notch athlete that's very, very fast. Applejack runs a successful farm. Pinkie Pie is happy and surrounded by people who love her and accept her for how she is with the excitement that she brings. and Twilight Sparkle was accepted and now learns under the prince's guidance. So maybe, just maybe, Lauren Faust actually gave these girls the closure they so much richly deserved. Or maybe
My dear Dolly Polly.